Hi, I'm Anna Denton-Jones of Refreshing Law Limited, and in this video I'm going to be talking about the Criminal Finances Act of 2017. Many of you will be familiar with the Bribery Act of 2010 and the obligations that it put on organisations to prevent anyone that works for you from engaging in bribery and corruption. And this legislation is very similar, works in a similar way, but this time it's focused on preventing tax evasion and economic crime. It's very easy to think that's not something that could happen here. It's not something we need to worry about, that's for other people. This legislation does apply to all organisations, and all organisations need to be thinking about it in the same way as they've had to think about bribery and corruption. And the legislation works in a very similar way in that it creates a strict liability offence, so an organisation is responsible if there is the economic crime, unless they've taken specific acts to prevent that from happening. And it's that prevention that is important to focus on. So that will be things like a top-down commitment, so maybe having policies that communicate to everybody that this kind of conduct does not go on here. It's having proper due diligence into who you're working with. It's having proper systems in place to prevent things from happening. It's having the right training and the right communications in place, and probably something in your contracts of employment, particularly for anybody who works in finance, for those who work in HR, maybe those who work in procurement, those sorts of things. So it is worth thinking about what you need to be doing if you haven't done something already. To give you some examples of issues that could arise. The first example relates to somebody who works in procurement and then making arrangements with a supplier, perhaps, that you work with on a regular basis, so your systems are used to receiving invoices from that particular organisation. What's to stop the supplier from sending you invoices for work they haven't actually done? Would your systems catch that out? I've recently come across an example where the people within both the organisation and the supplier were actually related to each other. So the supplier had an incentive to try and save tax their end by sending in false invoices. Would your systems pick that up? Another example might be you staffing up on a temporary basis using an agency. What systems have you got in place to make sure that the agency is taxing those people that they are engaging and providing to you and that you're paying the bill for correctly? Could that agency be deliberately setting people up as self-employed to avoid paying the right taxes, and would you pick that up? The other classic example that crosses my desk is in relation to settlement payments, where typically as part of negotiations we try and structure things in as tax efficient a manner as possible, so that somebody may be able to avail themselves of part of their payment perhaps being tax-free. But I often come across people wanting to bury things that should be being taxed within the tax-free element. So I'm thinking holiday pay, bonus pay, sometimes post-employment notice pay, which of course now should be being taxed, but often other payments as well, which really, if HMRC looked at it, they would say are taxable. So you need to be very careful that line managers, finance directors, others in organisations don't promise staff they can have payments tax-free, which they shouldn't be getting. I'm constantly shocked by the suggestions that I sometimes see from other solicitors that are wrong in this regard, and other HR professionals. So do make sure that you get some tax advice and that you get things correct in that way, and then you're not going to be guilty of an offence under this legislation. If you have any questions, adenton@refreshinglawltd.co.uk. Thank you very much.